I'm here with Americans comedian Kurt Metzger. We're joined by Nick Brana, the founder and national director of the People's Party, a rapidly growing movement for the new progressive political party in America. Nick was formerly the national political outreach coordinator with Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign, and then became a founding member and first electoral manager for Our Revolution. That's who this guy is. That's who Nick Brana is. And so first of all, welcome, Nick. Welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Hey, Jimmy.
And so Nick, because he used to work side by side with Bernie Sanders, what a better person to confront Bernie Sanders over his support of war. And Bernie has become a complete simp for a war machine, and he won't say anything. And so now people are actually going to protest Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders is the empire. He's the one supporting imperialism, 100%, with all the strength he has as one of the 50 most powerful people in the world. Bernie is using his power to push for nuclear war. That's what he's doing.
And you thought he was weak.
And you thought Bernie Sanders didn't have the balls to stand up, huh? So here you are. You went to confront Bernie Sanders over arming Nazis. Where was this, Nick? Where was he giving a speech?
This was in Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Okay, so here's what happened.
This election is about our economy.
Bernie, you're leading us to nuclear war! Bernie, you're going to start a nuclear war!
To billionaires and then cut.
I like how the people go, shut up with your nuclear war.
Is that going to end racism?
Security,
why are you funding this war in Ukraine, Bernie? You could
John
stop it.
Fetterman, Summerlee disagree. We
When
think that billionaires should
the
start
government of Ukraine in
paying their fair share
2014.
of taxes.
This
not
is
cutting.
pointless if we have a nuclear war, Bernie. You will kill
We
us
think
all.
we should raise the minimum wage to a living
Stop
wage.
funding this war. Stop funding this
think we
war,
should make it
Bernie.
easy
We
to
trusted
raise
you.
the
You were supposed to lead a
world
revolution.
and
You're leading us to
guarantee
annihilation in Ukraine.
We are taking on people who have unlimited amounts of money.
But
They
Bernie,
got the money.
where
Excuse
is
me,
our money
they got
going?
the money.
You're sending
We
money
have
to
the power.
Nazis
We're not
in
gonna let
Ukraine.
People, excuse me. We're not going to let people disrupt our meetings. So
Why did you oppose the letter
Where
of
we
all
are
progressives
right now
on sending money?
is in this moment.
You're starting a
standing
nuclear
up
war
to
with
the
Russia,
billionaire
Bernie.
class, the billionaire class.
You were supposed to start a political revolution.
So that's not really how Trumpers react to protesters, but that's how
Yeah,
that's how
right.
Bernie Sanders supporters are reacting now. That people who are left, people who still willfully want to see what Bernie Sanders actually is, which is a simp for empire and Wall Street and the military-industrial complex. That's what Bernie actually is. He's not actually a fighter for progressives. He's not actually a revolutionary. Bernie is a willing tool of empire, imperialism, Wall Street, and the military-industrial complex. That's who Bernie actually is. And I know it's hard to believe that, but that's who he is, which is why he's being protested and why people are reacting like Trumpers at a Trump rally against actual lefties who are standing up against nuclear war. You think Bernie would stand up against nuclear war, and then you remember Bernie's been for every frickin' illegal intervention.
Who is still standing around listening to Bernie that isn't utterly disappointed with him? And
So these are just regular Democrats who now they welcome Bernie because
he's
Bernie's
Liz Cheneying for
yeah.
Democrats.
So it's like,
Okay.
oh, he's going to say something nice about my corporate Democrat. I'll like Bernie. That's what this is.
I see.
Okay, there's more to this.
Instead, you're sending money.
And telling the people
You're
of
starting
Pennsylvania,
a third
the
world
people
war,
of this
Bernie.
country.
Why are you voting to fund a nuclear war, Bernie? Why are you voting to fund a nuclear war,
we came from
Bernie?
Vancouver to
Will you
see it.
answer our question?
Let me ask you a question.
Why?
Who's paying you?
No.
So Bernie comes over to an anti-war protester, and instead of answering the anti-war protester's question, Bernie Sanders says, "Who's paying you?" That's what Bernie Sanders said to an anti-war protester holding his feet to the fire. Now, you've heard Bernie and AOC and every other liar politician say that you're supposed to pressure politicians. It makes us better. And Bernie Sanders is, again, is just as big as hypocrite as anybody when it comes to politics, because there's an anti-war protester trying to hold him accountable. And what does Bernie Sanders do? Does he give that guy respect? Does he give that guy the respect he deserves and actually answer his question? Does he fold his hands like he did when 2 black women took his microphone away? No, he doesn't, because that was virtue signaling, because what he's doing right now is the real Bernie Sanders when he smears an anti-war activists as someone who has to be paid off to be against nuclear war. What's the truth is Bernie is acting in his own self-interest. And Bernie he's been paid off. I don't know where or what, but Bernie is paid off by his reputation. Bernie doesn't want to be on the outs with the Democratic Party. He doesn't want to turn into Ralph Nader. That's his payoff. That they're going to let him remain in their polite society and they won't pillory him for doing the right thing. Bernie's doing the wrong thing, and you notice the Democrats aren't saying anything negative about him. If
Yeah.
Bernie did the right thing, they'd be saying shit about him like they're saying about me. But he won't do it because Bernie is a simp for empire. He's a simp for the military-industrial complex, and that's his payoff. His payoff is they're going to let him remain in polite society, and they're not going to Ralph Nader him.
Remember when he would all be millionaires and billionaires?
Yeah.
And then it just became billionaires when he made his first
Yeah,
bill?
then he made a couple billion, then it just became billionaires, and now he doesn't even say it anymore.
Well, he'll say instead of the war, that's what he's saying as they were screaming the nuclear war thing. He's like, billionaires.
Let's see if there's more. So there he is. Here, let's watch him do it again.
Let me ask you a question.
Why?
Who's paying you?
No one.
Who is paying you?
No
to be
one.
Be honest, man.
No one. The people are paying me, Bernie. Why does someone have to be paid by Russia or someone else to oppose the war, Bernie? Why does someone have to be that?
Now, Bernie takes money. No, does Bernie take money from corporations, Nick?
No, but he might as well because he does everything that they want.
He didn't take any money from any corporation. Could you go to Misha? Go to Open Secrets, see where Bernie Sanders is.
No. So he takes individual contributions of people who work at corporations.
Okay.
And so if you see that, you'll see a lot of individual corporate, contributions from people who work
So he goes along
of
with the
different
war
corporations.
machine, and he goes along with Wall Street right now. He's doing all that without taking money from them.
Yes.
Why?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the head scratcher, right? So I get why AOC and the squad does, because they're afraid of the Democratic Party crushing them. Is that the same thing with Bernie Sanders? Is that what his payoff is? So the Democratic Party won't run a challenger against him in Vermont?
That's what it's been for 30 years. After his first term in Congress as an independent, he started caucusing with the Democrats. And then ever since then, he's been completely sold out to them.
And so let me see if there's anything more to this. Let's see.
Bernie, why are you paying for it? Why are you funding Nazis in Ukraine, Bernie? Why? Why?
And those people that were cheering Bernie at that rally, Nick, what kind of people were they? Were they just regular Hillary Clinton neoliberal voters who are uninformed, or were they former Bernie Sanders supporters? Are they current? They're not actual progressives there, right?
It's the little that remains of Bernie's supporters because he's basically liquidated his support base. Young people don't support him as much anymore. Anyone who lives outside the cities doesn't support him anymore. During the 2016 campaign, the coalition that we built on that campaign was amazing because it actually had people from across the political spectrum. Now the only people who support him are just regular Democrats.
Regular Democrats. He doesn't have any support anymore. He's, the people who voted for Barack Obama twice and then voted for him, they're done.
Is Bernie's wife that good of friends with Jill Biden that he had to do this?
Let's see if there's anything.
This election is
Okay, so we watched this. Ocasio-Cortez, Sanders, and the DSA vote for war. So the DSA, I tried to tell people this, it was very obvious during Force to Vote that the DSA is a compromised organization. They've been compromised by the intelligence community. They've been compromised by the establishment Democratic Party. They're not socialists. They're not democratic. They didn't take a vote of their own members to see if they wanted to support Force to Vote. That they're the opposite of democratic. So the members of DSA are well-intentioned, good people. The leaders of DSA are all lying, fucking corrupted pieces of shit, and they're a worthless organization. and none of them will come on my show. None of them will ever allow themselves to be challenged. And I don't care if you come on my show. I'll come on your show. Bring me on your show. They won't do that either.
This is going to sound cynical, what I'm going to say, but you think of that famous, embarrassing film of the DSA meeting?
You mean where they're telling people to quit whispering?
Yeah, do you think those are operative? Is there no such disease as you can't handle clapping, and those are operatives saying that to them?
They were doing that, by the way, during the Medicare for All march, the first one. That was what they were devoting their time to.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like so.
On May 10th, every single Democratic Socialist of America backed member of Congress voted to approve Joe Biden's request for $40 billion in military and financial aid for Ukraine. And what did the DSA do to put pressure on those? Nothing. Not a fucking thing. The DSA is now pro-war. Ha ha ha! So that's kind of the opposite of what socialists are supposed to be doing. That's fucking crazy. My question is, who's paying you, Bernie, for funding Ukraine? Shake my head. I'm with you. Bernie reveals over and over that he's a willing tool of empire and imperialism. He disbanded his movement to simp full-time for pro-war, pro-Wall Street, anti-worker party while smearing anti-war protesters. This is absolutely heartbreaking and demoralizing. Fuck you, Bernie Sanders. And last year, only 2 countries, the United States and Ukraine, voted against a UN resolution that condemned the glorification of Nazism. So 2 years ago, every country in the world voted against glorifying Nazism except for the United States and Ukraine, full with Nazis. Now, 52 countries voted in favor of Nazis in Ukraine. So now we're normalizing, this is what the United States has done. It's normalizing Nazis. But it's not coming from Kanye. It's coming from our government. It's coming from the Democratic Party and Bernie Sanders. So how much of a personal heartbreak was it for you, Nick? I mean, you worked with him.
I couldn't have imagined when I when I worked for him 6 years ago, I couldn't have imagined that, I gave a year of my life, worked tirelessly to elect him president on that 2016 campaign where, he resembled something authentic. And I couldn't have imagined that 6 years later, he would be smearing me as some kind of Russian agent. I mean,
unbelievable.
And it's not just him. It's Ilhan Omar. It's Ro Khanna. This is all of the progressives have been basically reduced to establishment Democrats. There's no difference. Bernie Sanders, you said it. He's the most pathetic case because he doesn't take the corporate money and he's 80 years old. So he doesn't have a career ahead of him. So he doesn't need to be a careerist, but he still does everything that the party establishment wants and pretends to be an independent while he's doing it.
So this is from Truthdig. There was about $6 million left from the Sanders campaign, and it was used to form an organization called Our Revolution in August of 2016. The organization was set up ostensibly to fund and support progressive candidates. It was soon taken over by Jeff Weaver, who ensured that it was not registered as a political action committee, a group that can give money directly to campaigns. It was set up as a 501c4, a group prohibited from having direct contact with candidates and giving donations directly to candidates. The 501c4 status allowed it to take and mask donations from wealthy donors such as Tom Steyer. Sanders' decision to quietly solicit contributions from the billionaire oligarchs who funded the Hillary Clinton campaign and control the Democratic Party betrayed the core promise of his campaign. Yet, even as he created a mechanism to take money from wealthy donors, he continued to write at the bottom of his emails, paid for by Bernie Sanders and not the billionaires. 8 of the 13 staffers of Our Revolution resigned in protest.
Wow.
So
yeah,
that's who
I was one of them.
That's
I was the first.
Nobody will tell that story.
No, except for you. I told the story on your show a couple years ago.
And then Jane Sanders sent me a DM claiming that was false. She lied to me in a DM, tried to scare me. First she lied and said she always defends me, which is bullshit. I don't know, like that. Like I give a
For
fuck.
what?
I don't need a politician to defend
you
me.
for thinking the things Bernie supposedly thinks?
That's right. And go ahead.
Here's something I haven't shared before. Also, Jane Sanders, you're not the only one she did it to. She did it to Cornel West. After Cornel West joined us at the Draft Bernie Town Hall back in 2017, he was extremely disappointed that Bernie Sanders hadn't even shown up, hadn't bothered
That's right.
to come by, say anything. Yeah, they actually lied. They lied to the media. They lied to Cornel West, saying, oh, we didn't know that they were going to get together. We didn't know that they had been petitioning us for several months, that they had gathered 50,000 signatures for me to help start a new party. They didn't know any of that. And, and it was a complete lie. And yet she that was what she said to him the day after.
It's I'm glad you guys are out there. I'm glad people are pressuring Democratic politicians because they're in control of government right now and they're funding a proxy war in Ukraine that is just decimating the Ukraine people. It's not helping them. The United States cares about as much of the Ukraine people as we care about Iraqi people or Libyan people or Afghanistan people or Syria people
Or our people?
or Yemeni people or Ethiopian people or our people. That's right. The United
All of
States
that stuff Bernie's talking about, increasing wages, healthcare, provide, better benefits, all of that stuff. He's participating in sending these $80 billion to Ukraine, and now the Democrats are planning to send another $50 billion. They're considering sending another $50 billion before the Republicans take the House. And so Bernie Sanders is just co-signing on all of that, on top of the $800 billion that we send the military-industrial complex annually. So thank God for these protesters that have started to stand up to these progressives and these Democrats and all of these pro-war politicians, a lot of them with the LaRouche movement. Thank goodness, because this is what's necessary. This is revitalizing and restoring the anti-war movement in this country at a time when it is desperately necessary. Hundreds of thousands of people protested Vietnam. They stopped Nixon from dropping atomic bombs and starting a third world war back in the early 70s. There were hundreds of thousands of people that protested the Iraq war. Now it's been absolutely crickets because we have Joe Biden and the Democrats, and apparently everybody falls asleep and doesn't give a damn if we sleepwalk into a third world war funded by Nazis right on Russia's border when Democrats are in charge.
Okay, but if we stop that, is that going to raise LGBTQ acceptance?
So when Bernie's pointed his finger at you, Nick, and he knows you personally and insinuated that you're being paid by somebody to oppose war, like somehow it's not real. Well, I mean, I can't imagine how that felt. That had to really feel, just watching it demoralized me. To watch this guy who used to be a hero of mine, just watching it crushed me. But I've never talked to Bernie. You actually worked with him. He actually respected you. You respected him. And he relied on you. And then to have him come over while you're standing up against war, to have him slander you publicly in the most disgusting way. What Bernie Sanders just revealed is that he's willing to be as big a piece of shit as you can fucking be. He's willing to be McCarthy. That's what as he's pushing for war, he's McCarthy smearing anti-war protesters. Bernie Sanders became the puke of a thing he's supposed to be the antidote to.
Well, after it was
and
done
he's
to
a
him.
fucking coward. He won't even stand up he can't even take a question from a spineless wimp like Kyle Kalinske. A fucking simp for the establishment in the Democratic Party, which is what Kyle Kalinske is, and he can't even stand up to him, and people still worship Bernie Sanders. That's why this country's in the fucking situation it is because people would rather defend a bullshit politician like Bernie Sanders as he turns his back on you and simps for empire than fucking stand up to him. That's why there is no left in America. The Democratic Party won last night, which means we have fascism in America. That's what it means. It means we have two pro-war parties. It means we have two pro-Wall Street, two anti-worker parties who are both going to deny you health care, and Bernie's going to simp for one of them. Anything you got left to say about this? Because I don't. I'm so fucking sick of Bernie Sanders. I'm so goddamn. He will not stop sucking the Democrats' cock until his fucking grave. Gotta suck blue cocks. Blue cocks are better than red cocks. Red cocks will take your democracy away. Blue cocks, they'll say they protect me and Jane from FBI prosecution.
Who paid you to go
Who paid you?
Blue cock?
Who paid you? Who paid you? Are you sucking blue cocks?
You know,
Okay.
this guy he's thinking unbelievably. He's thinking of running a third time for president. You know, he didn't. Didn't support forced to vote. Didn't fight for $15 minimum wage. Didn't oppose any of Biden's corporate nominees to the administration. Didn't get anything for endorsing Biden. Disbanded his movement, just like Obama did right during the beginning of the pandemic. This guy has betrayed the working class in every way that you can imagine. He was given that budget chair position because they knew that he wouldn't do anything. They knew that he's basically Biden's pet.
That's right.
He hasn't changed a damn thing. And thank goodness for people that are standing up. We have to go bigger and we have to go bolder. And it's making an impact. Because I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was announced just a couple days ago that there is apparently a channel that's opened up between the Biden administration and Russia.
Yes.
And there is some kind of discussion of, potential.
And Bernie's not going to push for it. And Bernie won't push for that.
No. He'll be the last person. And he also supported the NATO bombing of Yugoslavia. He
course.
has a long history of warmongering.
That's
in
what-
the 1999, there was a sit-in in his office that protested that bombing. He had them all arrested. 30 people arrested rather than talk to them out of his office. But Bernie Sanders is pathetic.
Turns out
progressives are the worst kind of Democrats.
Turns out, no, they're the best kind of Democrats. Actually, I mean,
Depends on who you ask.
if you're a donor, if you're a Wall Street tycoon, the progressives are your favorite. You love them. They'll do whatever you say. Bernie Sanders has turned out to be he's very class loyal. He is not a class traitor. He's not because Bernie Sanders, and he's got a couple million for that book or whatever. And so now he is a class loyalist. He is not going to betray his class and actually stand up against the pro-Wall Street, pro-war party. He's not going to do it. He's just not going to do it.
I forgot until you brought up those two girls took his mic and he didn't just
He didn't
sat
say
there.
shit. Do you
Yeah,
remember?
I just took it as massive weakness.
so
and not
when-
realize what a snake he is. That
So
he's
when two
pretending-
black
yeah,
girls want to take his microphone away, he will virtue signal like a good boy.
right?
Like a good boy. But when someone who actually has an anti-war message stands up that it's going to call him on his bullshit, he's going to smear them.
Yeah, right.
Because Bernie Sanders is just another bullshitting, self-dealing fucking politician who nobody will hold his feet to the fire.
You know what, Jimmy? I'm starting to think he did tell Elizabeth Warren a woman can't be president.
I bet he did. All right. Well, Nick, I really appreciate you doing that. Hey, we're doing live stand-up comedy shows. We're going to be in Austin, Texas, November 19th and 20th, November 26th in Burbank, California. Plus, in December, every Friday, we're going to be in Studio City at Two Roads Theater. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all our tickets and become a premium member while you're there to get all our videos unedited.